Welcome to Second City Liberty, a Chicago centric podcast that takes a look at politics, current events, sports, and pop culture through the lens of liberty. I'm your host, Jim Hume. Thanks for tuning in. The 2024 presidential race is already well underway. We witnessed the Republican primary presidential debate last night. A multitude of candidates from both of the major parties have announced their intentions for the highest office in the land. Libertarians will also have a choice of candidates seeking the presidential nomination. The LP does not have a primary process like the Republicans or Democrats, which means our presidential and vice presidential candidates will be selected at the party's national convention in Washington, D.C., which is going to be held over Memorial Day weekend in 2024. My guest today is one of those candidates looking to represent the Libertarian Party on the ballot next November, Joshua Smith. Uh,
Hey, Jim.
Welcome to
Thanks
the
so much
podcast.
thanks so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Uh, let's get right to it. Kind of introduce yourself to the audience. A little bit about your background history and why you're interested in running for president.
Sure. I might be a little bit of a glutton for punishment, some would say.
Mhm.
So I came to Liberty by the way of being in the military. I joined the military right after 9/11, not long after 9/11. I decided I had to go and protect my countrymen from the evil terrorists, and so I joined the U.S. Navy because I didn't really want to fight a war, and I was attached to the USS Constellation almost immediately. It was supposed to be a year-long world cruise that took us around the world and showed us, 32 countries or something like that. Um, but unfortunately, George Bush declared war when we were setting in the Persian Gulf, and so we were the biggest part of the shock and awe campaign. We dropped 100 million tons of ordnance on Baghdad. As an 18, 19-year-old kid, most people wouldn't think about that kind of stuff, but I couldn't get past the fact that Baghdad is not just the desert. We didn't just turn a bunch of sand into glass, as they say. It's a big city that a lot of people live in, like kids, and they have family pets, and they go to school, and people wake up every morning, put their work boots on, and go to construction jobs. And it really jaded me on the military industrial complex and the corruption of the mission of the U.S. Foreign policy. Of course, at the time I didn't know what libertarian was. I was a registered Republican, George Bush era Republican, um, and I got out around 2005, very jaded. I did felt like the Republican Party didn't match my interests and my values anymore. I knew that I didn't want our country to be continuously in war, and we had been in war since as long as I could remember. And then I found Ron Paul in early 2007, and I hopped on his campaign actually in California, and campaigned very hard for Ron Paul. And that's the first time I ever got introduced to Murray Rothbard and F.A. Hayek and Mises and all these great economists and theorists and philosophers that have made these beautiful ideas of liberty possible in our brains. So I started reading books and really got into that stuff. And of course, I watched the way the Republican Party treated Ron Paul. And I like to say that, it's one thing to blackball somebody from the media. It's another thing to have your own party arresting the party delegates at caucuses in places like Louisiana and keep the doors locked, not let them in. It was very, very, very corrupt, very corrupt. And so there was no way I was going to continue to be a part of the Republican Party. So I just walked away. And then in 2010, I joined the Libertarian Party for the first time. And I was this hyped up activist. I was like, in my head, I was going to get Ron Paul to come back and run in the Libertarian Party in 2012. That's what I was going to do. It's like he has a home with these people. Have to love Ron Paul. How could they not love Ron Paul? He's saying everything that we want. He's been stated on the national stage since the 80s. And so I joined the Libertarian Party. I started emailing the national committee right away. Hey, what can I do? Tell me how to get involved. Show me what I need to do. And I was stonewalled. Nobody ever got back to me. I didn't realize there were such things as state affiliates or county affiliates that I could be joining. I didn't know anything about any libertarian candidates that I could work on their campaigns. And I had just worked on a very high visibility campaign, and so I stopped my donations after 3 months and just started doing my own thing. I did like a publication, and then we had another publication and several publications that came pretty prominent, like Think Liberty and stuff like that, Dankritarians, and we were big part of the Gary Johnson Stank meme stash that had thousands and thousands of members back then too. And so then I joined the Libertarian Party again in 2015 because I was watching Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton going, no way I'm going to be part of this clown show. And it was Nick Sarwark really that got me hyped up at first in 2016. I was a big fan. I was like, this guy just gave one of the most barn burning speeches I've ever heard. You know, your tears are delicious and your parties will die. And like, yeah, this is where I belong. And so I joined the Washington State Party, became a region rep there, started building county affiliates in Southern Washington, right across the river from Portland, Oregon. Very hard place for liberty.
I'm in Chicago. I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's not much different. Less gun violence in Oregon, of course, right. But it's along the same lines of politically. And so anyway, so I it was around that time I saw Nick Sarwark start attacking some of my heroes. I mean, people like Dave Smith and Eric July and these people that have helped me really build who I am as a person in this philosophy, in this movement. And so I started calling a bunch of big name libertarians going, hey, you guys got to run against this guy. You can't continue to do this stuff from the highest position. This can't be what everybody equates libertarianism with. And everybody basically told me you're crazy. He's the most popular chairman the party's had ever. And we're not going to run against him. So I decided to put out an intent to run statement from Think Liberty, thinking that it wouldn't go anywhere, just be a challenge. You know, nobody really knew who I was. And it took off. We went to 38 states that year. We showed up to the national convention and took like 11 or 12% of the vote and ended up on the LNC anyways in an at-large. I did a full term there and then ran again for at-large against Joe Bishop Henchman in 2020. Got much higher vote totals that time, but still lost. Ended up back on the board as an at-large, so it was my second term. I did 4 years. And then, of course, ran for vice chair in 2022. Became the vice chair. Wasn't happy with the direction the LNC was taking things, so I stepped down and let them I didn't want to take any blame for that. I'd rather work outside that to keep the movement bolstered and moving. And you know, I was a big Dave Smith for president guy. I thought that was going to be really good thing for us because he's got the thing that we all want. You know, he goes out there and he tells it like it is, as I like to say, and he likes to say, he spits that liberty shit the way it needs to be spat.
Right.
It was a couple months ago when I realized, you know, like, hey, Dave's not going to run. If Dave was going to run, he would have announced already. Nobody else is going to step up and do it the way that I think it should be done. People are saying, well, if you don't think it should be done that way, Chase Oliver's campaign specifically, if you don't think it should be done that way, why don't you run and show us how it's done? And so I came up with this crazy harebrained scheme to put together a campaign. And within 2 weeks, we had 50 people working on the campaign and we were raising money. And we already are doing debates and traveling all over the country. And we've been in Denver. We'll be in New Jersey next week. We got Syracuse, New York. You know, of course, Iowa, the Iowa Fair. I've been at the Iowa State Fairs. I live here in Iowa. I'll be at the debates in South Carolina. So we got a really good thing going here. And the movement's building fast. We're doing about 7 million impressions a week right now, which is humongous. We just came up on 50 million Americans data. We're going to start doing actual polls. We'll be the first Libertarian Party candidate to run actual like million people polls with our name on them, and hoping we get a backing of a really cool institute that may put their names on that to help us out with that. And we're just doing it the way that I wanted it to be done. And I have a lot of support. And I think that we have the opportunity to get that 5% and change the political landscape for forever. You know, once we get that 5%, they make us a national major political party. There's no stopping us after that. So,
yeah, that's always been the magic number to try to attain to kind of compete on a semi-even playing field. I mean, obviously the big money donors is you know, where the other two parties really get their traction, but ballot access is an important thing.
Yes.
Matching funding. The 5% really guarantees matching funding as well.
And you in Illinois, you know about ballot access issues. You know how hard it is. And I constantly harp on this to people. Like, we spend millions of dollars every 4 years, millions and millions of dollars just trying to get an L on the ballot. Right. And like, you know, people are like, well, why should I vote for you? You're not going to win. No shit. We know we're not going to win the presidency in 2024. Any libertarian candidate that's telling you he's going to win the presidency in 2024 is blowing steam up your butt. The truth is we need 5%. And it's much easier to sell 5% to the populace that doesn't vote by saying, we will forever change the political landscape. Now the Libertarian Party no longer has to spend this millions and millions of dollars fighting for ballot access. They have to give us all the same exact things they give the Republicans and the Democrats in every state across the board: the federal matching funds, the easy ballot access requirements, the debate access, which is huge. We get debate access. That changes everything. You put a libertarian, I'm telling you, I would love nothing more than to get on the debate stage with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Could you imagine how bad any good libertarian worth their salt could make these people look just by talking about the real issues and how they've affected policy in the United States? Like, I can't wait to get up there, and we're going to try real hard to pull at 15% so we can do it this year. But, that's also a pipe dream. But I can tell you that 5% changes the political landscape for history, for the rest of history. And it's a doable, achievable, attainable goal that I know that if somebody can fire up a movement big enough to get, several million votes, we can do that. And I know with the team that we're working with, the progress that we've already made, we're going to get that 5%. It's going to change everything.
And with how close the last several presidential elections have been, I mean, 5% is enough to have a serious influence on the winner. And that means that the other two major parties need to start paying attention to the Libertarian. Sure. So that's important as well. I will you did mention that you had stepped down from being vice chair of the Libertarian National Committee. That has been a criticism that is out there, that is Josh serious enough? Is he committed enough to kind of see this campaign all the way through to the end? Maybe comment on some of that criticism that's been going around.
Sure. And so when I first stepped down from the LNC, you guys got anybody who's watching this or knows me at all or has ever interacted with me or knows my history with the party, you got to know this wasn't an easy decision for me, right? Like, I worked my ass off to get to where we were. And when we got to the top, the pinnacle, that mountain, which was our first big goal, was take the LNC. It didn't work. Like, the way it was being run after that is not working. We're not doing well financially. Our data's not doing well. Our memberships numbers are down. And a lot of that is because there's this element of the LNC currently, and I'll say it's the chair is a big part of that. Okay. And I'm not afraid to say that. I was trying to protect those people when I first stepped down, but then some new information came to light that I was, the chair was working with some other people to try and have me removed and Karen Ann removed last term. And that's all provable in public right now. The documents are out there. So I'm no longer worried about protecting her. In fact, I hope that any delegates that watch this will replace her and a couple other members on the LNC as well in DC, please. And we can talk about that off air, but it just wasn't what I fought for. We fought for 6 years. I mean, literally, I traveled to 49 states. I gave up places to live. I gave up jobs. I gave up relationships. And we got there and it was like, you're doing the same things we were bitching about, the same things that we were fighting about. The reason why we started this, you've lost the plot. I'm not going to be blamed for these things because this isn't how I've operated. And I'm sure as hell not going to have my name dragged through the mud for 2 years sitting on this board because it was blatant that you're doing it purposely. And so I stepped down. It was much better to expend my political capital in that regard and then come back and have those personal conversations with people. I've had 150 phone calls about this with people, and have those conversations and let you know that, like, I still care about this movement. It still means a ton to me, but there's no way that I could have sat there for 2 years and had my name dragged through the mud and came out on the other side in a position to help the movement. And so, if people are worried about me being dedicated to this, we're dedicated to running this all the way through November. In fact, if a libertarian candidate gets the nod that we don't agree with, we may still run the write-in campaign all the way through November. So we are definitely 100% running this through November of next year, unless somebody that we love and cherish steps up and runs and gets the nomination. Then maybe we run for vice president. Then maybe we step down and work on the campaign. I don't know, but I am 100% dedicated. We have like a 70-person campaign staff already. We've already amassed delegates all over the country. Like, we're doing this thing, and we're fired up about it. It's like we have this like Ron Paul revolution feeling going on. It's like 2.0, right? Like the flat line and then the beep 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 beep. That's literally one of the logos for the campaign because This is why we started doing this in 2016. Bring the revolution home, right? And I refuse to let it die out without trying one last time. And so the campaign's really about reviving what we started, bringing what we set out to do back to life, and taking it as far as we can get it.
So kind of based on your comment there, you're obviously not going to just automatically back whoever the LNC delegates nominate if it's not yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been this way, okay, and I don't want to. I'm not apologetic about it at all. Like, I'm not going to support a candidate that doesn't align with my values. That's the great thing about being a libertarian, right? And there are some people out there that have, even some running currently that have some things that I just literally cannot get behind. They go way outside the bounds of my values. But there are some candidates too that I would be happy to support. I mean, if Rechtenwald got it, I'd be happy to support Rechtenwald. He's not going to fire up a movement. There's no like veracity behind that. I think that Termott's got a lot of really good things to say. I think his Gold New Deal is really great. And, I'm looking at these people. To me, we're the preeminent candidate. We're the ones winning all the polls. We're the ones amassing all the delegates already. We're the ones that have just gone on Timcast, and we're getting ready to try and do Rogan, and we're going to do Sean Ryan, and we're doing PBD. We're doing all these big things that we thought Dave was going to do.
Right.
So to me, we're winning. To me, it's which one of these guys would make a great vice presidential candidate. But I'm also not opposed to the fact that maybe I get beat at convention. Convention, you never know how convention's going to go. But there are, and even to some extent, there was some, I just did a debate with Chase Oliver in Denver, and to some extent, he said some really good things. Now he's got some things that I just can't get behind at all, which is fine. But yeah, I if there's a candidate that is 90-80% on value with me on value points, then I'd be more than happy to work on their campaign if I don't win. But I'm not going to support anybody who is way outside the bounds of my values for sure. So,
and then kind of another thing that's been an issue with some of the past presidential LP presidential nominees is kind of once the election's over, and whether they're the nominee or they've been in the running, a lot of those donors, a lot of that data that's been collected by these campaigns doesn't get shared with the party at large. So and look, even Jo Jorgensen kind of used a lot of that momentum and donor list to kind of start her own thing, which is great. That's fine. But a lot of those contacts were kind of withheld from the party. Are you willing to, or would you say that that any information or donors or emails and phone numbers that you collect in the campaign, that the party would be able to use that information in the future moving forward, so we're not really starting from ground zero every 4 years?
Yeah, and I've publicly stated, actually, I think it was Michael Heiss, made a call out post to all the candidates and said, "Would you be willing to give your data list to the party?" I said, absolutely. That's not a problem to me at all. Now, if it's a candidate who's way outside the bounds of my values, I probably wouldn't give it to the campaign, but I'd be more than happy to give it to the party. I've worked with this party on and off since 2010, and I believe in this party. I really do. I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to work with the Republicans and Democrats ever again as a party, because they're, I watched what our ideals mean to them in both parties. I'm never, ever, ever going to give anything to them. But yeah, I'm more than happy to give my data sheet to the Libertarian Party and hope that it works out. And, a big part of this campaign is going to be getting new members into the party. I mean, it's on our website. The campaign website has a link to join both the national, and it's got the state map, so you can join your state party, which we're urging first, because that's how you can become a delegate.
Right.
That's where your policies are felt the most, and we're a big fan of the localization, decentralization movement. Of course, I think that nullification is very important. So joining your state first is important to me, but definitely join the national if you can. And helping down ballot candidates. We got to think about that. I mean, every presidential candidate trickles some love down to the local candidates and state candidates, down ballot candidates. That's where it's the most important. Our campaign is about a 50-state media tour and ballot access. Those are the two things that the presidential candidate absolutely has to do. But everything else outside of that should be a benefit to all of our other great candidates that are running in the places that actually matter, and so that's a big part of it. I want to help out as many local and state candidates as I possibly can. Whether that's coming to their events, whether that's an endorsement, whether that's helping them with media, whatever it is, I definitely want to help out. I'm having James Wiley from Colorado on my show in a week from now. He's running a great candidacy against Lauren Boebert, which is interesting. So yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff that the presidential candidate needs to do, and one of them is helping the party, and the other is helping the down ballot candidates, and of course, a big focus on ballot access and a big focus on getting that 5% through a media tour. It's really what it is.
Well, as someone who's decided to run for Cook County Board in 2024, I appreciate that. Here in Cook County, we actually have established party status, so we get to compete on a fairly even playing field with the Democrats and Republicans. So our ballot access is a lot easier than it used to be. So we always try to run some countywide candidates, and
you guys won a lawsuit for ballot access not too long ago, right?
Yeah, we did in the last election cycle. So we had a candidate for state's attorney that I believe got a little over 8% of the vote, almost 9%, and that would qualify for ballot access. And the county said, well, that would be for that particular race, and we're like, no, that's not the way this works. So we did take them LP Illinois did take them to court and got that resolved.
It's probably extremely helpful that you guys have Bill Redpath in your state.
He's great. He's if you want to know anything about ballot access, Bill Redpath is the guru for that kind of stuff. So let's kind of get out of the inside baseball stuff of the Libertarian Party and maybe talk a little bit more about some of the campaign platform and issues that you're looking at. In a world where you win and you're a president of the United States, what a Joshua Smith administration would look like. Any particular, what would be? I know we can every libertarian candidate you're going to talk to is going to talk about ending the Fed, Department of Education, all this stuff. I think we can all pretty much agree on that. What are some particular issues that might separate you just a little bit from some of the other LP candidates that are running, that maybe give your campaign a little bit different flavor?
Sure. I think the very biggest issue that separates me from definitely the other libertarian candidates is I think that first of all, I'm a Bitcoin maxi. I think Bitcoin is very, very important. I think that when we do get to a point where we can get off the central bank's dole, having some kind of framework for alternative currency is going to be super important. Otherwise, there's going to be so much blood. It's going to be really hard. And a lot of these candidates, especially libertarian candidates, talk about ending the Fed. The president actually doesn't have the power to end the Fed. That's not a power that we have. Right. What we do have is the power to appoint the Fed chair. And I've said that I would appoint Ron Paul as the Fed chair, because if anybody's going to go in there and hack and slash away, it's going to be Ron Paul. But if I had the opportunity to take the charter for the Federal Reserve and rip it up and say you're no longer chartered through the U.S. federal government, you're damn right I would do it. Even if I had to take all of it back to the Treasury for the time being, I would do that. But if we were to get to a point where we no longer have the central banking system in the United States, we have got to have some kind of alternative currency set up already. That's so important. And what a better way than something that, 30% of the population has already adopted in Bitcoin. It's very, very important. It's the biggest cryptocurrency out there. It's already got a framework laid. It's already got all these other uses. It's got, this kind of parallel cause to the food freedom movement, the energy freedom movement, all these other movements. It's perfect. So I think that me being a Bitcoin maxi and talking about Bitcoin definitely separates me from the other candidates. None of them are talking about that. The other very biggest issue that I talk about that other people don't is I see the importance in family matters, family values in the United States. As Title 4D of the Social Security Act was implemented, signed into law in 1975 by Ford, I believe, Gerald Ford.
Right.
Since then, if you look at the statistics of families, fatherless homes have dropped immensely. I mean, tenfold. It's insane. And if you really get deep into the statistics, we're talking about gun violence, violent crimes, homeless runaway youths, school dropouts, all these things. It all coincides with the implementation of Title 4D, which is essentially the federal government subsidizes states that spend dollar amounts on child services like child support enforcement and the like. So what they've done is they've incentivized the states to separate families.
Yep.
They've made it much easier for kids to have to grow up in one home, see another parent as a visitor in their life, which is bullshit. No parent is a visitor in their children's lives. And if you look at these stats, it's undeniable. 90% of mass shooters, fatherless home. Something like 78% of homeless runaway youths, fatherless homes. Something like 68% of, and I do have the stats written down, but I'm not looking at them. Something like 68% of school dropouts, fatherless home. It was like very high, like 87% of violent offender youth sitting in jail right now, fatherless homes. These aren't things that we had to deal with as Americans prior to this.
Right.
And so there's no denying at all that Title 4D has had a huge hand in this, in the Social Security Act. Now, this is an act. This is something I can walk in day one, sign an executive order, and be done with. What it does is, for every 66 cents that the state government spend on these programs, the federal government returns them $1. So they're paying the state to separate families. And since then, we've had, we went from like 8% fatherless homes to like 50. I mean, it's great. It's absolutely insane. And I think that me talking about those and being the family man, blue collar worker that I am, that's been through the family law system repeatedly, I think that's going to bear a lot of weight on the American public, because millions of, not just fathers, women too, have dealt with this. Much, when they're looking at the statistics, it's like 92.7% of men, but there are some women that deal with this too, under 10%, but still. And it's something that needs to be addressed, because it's ruining our society. It's ruining the very fabric of our society. And more than anything else out there, in my opinion, other than maybe the war and the monetary policies. It's absolutely damning and destroying everybody, and you're screwed before you're even born, because you don't realize that these policies have been enacted in the United States. A lot of people don't understand what it is, but we got to talk about it, and we got to get rid of it. So day one, we're signing that executive order. Title 4D is out the window. We're pardoning Assange and Ulbricht immediately. Boom, done. We're going to start working on trying to get a Fed chair appointed. We're going to stop all foreign welfare immediately. No more sending over $60 billion a year to 200 countries that have no diplomatic trade policy with the United States whatsoever. It's not benefiting Americans. We're going to stop sending money to wars. We're going to stop sending troops to wars. We're going to bring all our troops home, start closing bases down around the world. And we're going to take any money that we have left over in the foreign policy national security budget. We're going to give a more aggressive mental health care to the returning vets, so that they can get back in line with their families and integrate correctly without having this terrible disease of PTSD in their brain all the time. We're going to immediately cut 70% of the workforce in the ATF, the FBI, and the IRS. And we're going to bulldoze the ATF headquarters in DC, and we're going to immediately build a dog park memorial for all the dogs that have been lost due to the ATF. We're going to cut the income tax all the way. It's gone. We don't need an income tax. We were never supposed to have an income tax. That means the estate tax. That means the payroll tax and capital gains, all gone. People should be free to keep the money that they make. If they need something from the government, then we can talk about user fees. But if the government can't voluntarily fundraise the money it needs, then the government shouldn't exist. And so these are all just first month policies. Of course, we're going to sign a bunch of executive orders when it comes to personal self-defense. We're going to institute a national reciprocity / constitutional carry bill. We're going to institute. We're going to get rid of the 1993 school gun ban. We're going to get rid of the NFA, the NCIS or NICS. We're going to get rid of Biden's pistol brace ban. Those are all things that we can do right away. Executive ordered, boom, gone. My elbow's going to get tired from getting rid of so many bad laws and bureaucracies and agencies on the first week. And then we're going to get into some policy after that. Then we'll start talking about doing diplomatic trade deals with countries that want to do diplomatic trade deals with America that actually benefit Americans instead of just sending money out to, for pet projects. And these are the things that we should have been doing. And there's no reason why the libertarian candidate can't be an America first candidate. We're running to represent the people of America, and we need to make sure that their best interests are at our heart at all times. 12% of the population of the United States cannot afford to put food on the table today, right now. And we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars around the world for things that don't benefit them. No more. We're done with that. The middle class is almost non-existent. We got to bring back policy that fixes the middle class. Middle class is the lifeblood of any country. And we're throwing them all under the bus. I am the middle class. I am the blue collar worker class. I am the parent family class. And I understand these plights very, very well because I've dealt with them for many years. And we're just going to be that candidate that comes out and tells people what they want to hear because we've been through the same things. And so it's the same things that we want to hear and the same things that we want to see from elected officials. And I am that guy. I am him.
Yeah, that sounds great. Another issue that was, and I'll bring up our previous president Donald Trump and his kind of policy towards NATO.
Sure.
And reducing NATO or even disbanding it. To me, that's a big part of our foreign policy that is just causing more problems these days than is worth. It was a defensive alliance against the communism of the Soviet Union, which hasn't existed in a couple decades now. Real quick on just your thoughts on NATO.
Well, NATO still wants that war with Russia, buddy. They've never given up on that goal. I promise you, they continue to expand all around Russia's borders. I had the same issue with Iran, right? Like the whole Iran deal. We're constantly hearing from our officials that Iran are hate us and want war with us. But the fact of the matter is we've set up military bases all around their country. And we run our battle groups right down the straits, right past their country every time we enter the Gulf. And we're poking the bear there. I mean, that's what we've done for years. We want war with Iran. That's what our government has always wanted since we went in and did a coup in the 1950s of their democratically elected prime minister who nationalized their oil because all of a sudden they weren't giving us the oil for free, right? Mm-hmm. And we've been doing the same things. NATO's been doing the same things to Russia for decades, since World War II. Okay, or it's after World War II. But look, we're the biggest funder of NATO as a country. I would pull all funding from NATO. I would take us completely out of NATO. NATO is not a defensive alliance. It's an entangling alliance that gets us all entrapped in all kinds of wars and civil wars and their pet projects. And it doesn't benefit Americans. If I will be the president that will not do anything unless it benefits Americans. I will also sign an executive order that closes out the authorization for use of military force that has been open-ended at least since the second Iraq war. And has given every president the money they sought to go to any kind of war that they want to be in and drone bomb any kind of people that they want to drone bomb. It should have never been opened. It's wildly illegal and unconstitutional. Our Constitution requires our Congress to declare war on a country if we're going to go to war. So I'm going to sign an executive order that brings us back to the constitutionally required requirement for war. Congress, if you want a war, if you want any kind of war around the world, you better declare it federally, constitutionally, and you better get the support of your constituents, because I'll tell you, nothing will get somebody replaced in Congress faster than declaring war that the country doesn't want to be in. And so The AUMS got to go. NATO's got to go. We're not sending any more money to Ukraine. We're not going to get caught up in the tripwire of Taiwan. That's just a tripwire with war in China. We've been driving Russia into China's arms for years. Okay, and now we're going to go out and fight China over island that's 90 miles off their coast. First of all, that we can't win that war. We go over there, we lose a battle group. What happens if they sink a destroyer? What happens if they sink an aircraft carrier? We lose 5,000 sailors, and now we're at a point where we're going to have to fire a nuke. You know what I mean? Like this is terrible. This is all terrible foreign policy that we've been dealing with for decades. It's got to be stopped. We want to make chips, or we want to have a diplomatic relationship with China to make chips, fine. But if it comes down to us going to war with China, then we'll just make chips here. You know, AMD can make them in Austin, Texas. We have plenty of places in California and Oregon and all up and down the West Coast. We have data centers all over the Midwest. There's no reason. We mine cobalt here. There's no reason whatsoever that we can't be making those same chips here in the United States. In fact, I worked at a plant in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, that made the robots that we ship over there to make the chips. So I know we can make them here because I've built the robots.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm just done. I'm done with this downright evil pet project foreign policy. The American people didn't sign up for these wars, and they're done with them. That's it. I don't care what treaties have been signed, what guarantees have been signed. We talked about this the other day, the 1993 trilateral bill that Bill Clinton signed with Russia and Ukraine. And the guy's like, well, we have to do this because that, you know, Bill Clinton signed that. I said, Bill Clinton's not the people. I don't care what they've signed. If I could rip up the charter for the Federal Reserve, I'd do it tomorrow. You know, I don't care. I don't care what the president has signed. I don't care what the government has signed. What I care about is the American people. And the American people didn't sign up for this. So we're done. We're done with these wars. They don't want them anymore. It's wildly unpopular to continue these constant wars in the Middle East and with Ukraine and Russia and China. It's wildly unpopular. So we got to stop doing them. That's it. I'm done. We're done. As American people, we're done. And I'll lead that movement. I don't care. Even till the CIA takes me out, I'm leading that movement.
Yeah, the CIA is another one. I was going to kind of bring that up after NATO. Here's an organization, again, in theory, designed to protect American interests. And I mean, the interests they are protecting is obviously the military-industrial complex, and they are involved in regime change. They're involved in destabilizing foreign nations, and we've got this migrant crisis right now, and here it's a big hot topic here in Chicago. Mayors and governors from Abbott from Texas are sending all these migrants that have crossed the border.
No refunds
back to Chicago and New York because we're sanctuary cities, and nobody thought to plan ahead for that. But to me, this is a perfect example, and you know, obviously there are those that are saying, "Oh, we should welcome these people," and there are those that are saying, "No, you know, we can barely take care of ourselves here." But it's a perfect example of total failure of government, top to bottom, from the federal government to the deep state interfering and destabilizing countries, to state and local governments not being, you know, calling themselves sanctuaries without thinking through the whole process. And it's a perfect example of how government has created a crisis and then continues to make it worse and worse and worse.
Sure. Well, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not an open borders libertarian. I used to be a utopian idealist open borders guy. Like, everyone should be allowed to come here, you know, and it really has proven over the last 10 years how hard it is as a nation to support massive immigration. And so I am pro immigrant. I think that immigrants have helped our economy. I just think that we need a more streamlined process. Obviously, our process is ridiculous to become a citizen of the United States. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But we can't allow millions of people to flood over into our welfare magnet, because we have a welfare magnet. It's what it is. I mean, you know, and these are resources that we should be using to help the 12% of the population that can't feed themselves right now.
Right.
And so I'm not, but to get back to your point of the CIA, and I would support like something more along the lines of an Ellis Island style immigration policy, where it's more streamlined, but we still have a good vetting process, and we don't just allow everybody over. We can't support it. It's not sustainable, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But back to your point about the CIA. Now, the problem with these federal agencies is they've grown so big. And the reason why they grow so big, and I don't hear any other presidential candidates talk about this. I don't know why, but we're a government agency, the DOD, the DOJ, FBI, the CIA, any of these, the ATF. You have a budget set every year. There's a budget meeting. They set your budget. That's your budget. If you don't spend your whole budget, they never give you that same budget again. It goes down. If you do spend your whole budget, they look into giving you more money. Okay. Now we learned this with Waco, right? Right as the budgetary hearings were supposed to start happening, the ATF was going to get cut, not cut entirely, but they were going to get big budget cuts. And so then all of a sudden Waco happens. And now they're like, look, there's domestic terrorism in the United States. You need us. And they doubled their budget or something over the next couple of years. And they burned alive 70 people, including 25 children. Terrible garbage. What has happened is because of that process, these federal agencies have grown so wildly huge, way bigger beyond the scope of what they were ever supposed to be, including the FBI, including the ATF and the CIA and the IRS even, right? The biggest thing with this is like the FBI, okay? They used to focus on, interstate serial killings and drug and human trafficking and like these kind of things, right? These kind of horrible things that maybe we do need some kind of federal police force to look after. But when they got so big that they had too many people to just focus on those issues, they started doing things like infiltrating Catholic groups and calling moms at school board meetings domestic terrorists and planting false flags like the CIA has, and with proof. These are proven things. Operation Northwoods, these are real proven things where they were trying to get a war with Cuba so we could annex Cuba, and they were trying to plan attacks on American people and blame it on the Cubans. These are documented from released data from the United States government. Okay. They've grown wildly out of control. And so as a president, we don't have the authority or the power to get rid of these agencies. It takes an act of Congress. It was passed by law. We do have the opportunity. And I love Vivek for talking about this in the debates, because he's the only one I've ever heard talk about it. We can lay off 70% of the workforce. And we can take a lot of the remaining workforce and send them to mail rooms and maintenance departments around the country. Okay, we can get them completely out of the field that they're working in, and we may not be able to pay them less, but they're not doing these things anymore. And so what I think we can do is we can get those forces so small that they only have time to focus on actual things like, maybe we do need some kind of international spycraft. I had this conversation with AP, maybe we do need to monitor for actual threats to the U.S. population. Okay, I get that. But the CIA has wildly outstepped those bounds, right? And so maybe we get them down to a small enough force where they don't have time to do anything else except look for actual threats. Maybe we get the FBI down to such a small portion of what they are now that they only have time to look for interstate serial killers and child traffickers, right? And the IRS, maybe we get the IRS down so far that all they can think about is, I don't know, we're gonna get the IRS down so far that they don't have time to think about anything, because we're not going to have an income tax. So of course there's other taxes that we'll have to talk about down the road, but in my opinion, from the federal level, the most important one is the income tax. It never should have been instituted. But I think we get these forces down small enough to where we don't have all this wildly out of control stuff going on anymore. And I think Vivek's right about that. And any candidate that, like I said, any candidate that's telling you as a president they're going to abolish the Federal Reserve, abolish the FBI, abolish the CIA, abolish the IRS, they don't have the power. There is no power for that. So you have to come up with these real world policy prescriptions and institute them if you should win. If you guys are crazy enough to put me in the White House, I'm going to do these things. I guarantee that. But And I do need the 16 rooms. If you guys don't know, we have our 9th kid on the way, so we would appreciate the White House.
Sure.
But no, but I'm serious. These are important things that our candidates need to understand what the scope of their power is as a president, so they can come up with actual real world policy prescriptions. But they're not doing that. The Libertarian Party candidates have wildly lived on these platitudes and bumper sticker slogans for years. Abolish the ATF. We can't. Abolish the FBI. We can't. You can't do that. We end the Federal Reserve. We can't. You can't do those things. It takes an act of Congress to do all those things. And I would urge Congress, guaranteed, as a presidential candidate, I'd be like, look, we've gotten the CIA down so far, or the FBI or the IRS down so far. It's proven that we don't need it, especially bringing all these troops home, not wasting all this money on this crazy foreign policy. I would love it if you guys could end the IRS tomorrow. We don't need people going after middle-class dads who messed up on their taxes anymore. Sorry, And so, I would urge Congress to do those things, but it's not a guarantee as a presidential candidate that you'll ever get the opportunity to do that, even if you win. So,
right. One last topic or comment. A lot of the American people have kind of lost confidence in our electoral process.
Sure.
We had the whole 2020 election, the 2016 election, both, every time one side lose, they're claiming, interference, they're claiming fraud. We see the incidents of January 6th, where people were angry enough to show up in Washington, D.C. And to me, it's only gotten worse since 2020. How, as a libertarian candidate, how can we kind of help restore the voters and the American public's faith in our election process, in our voting process?
I don't know if we can, and I don't know if I want to be honest with you. The more people that opt out of the voting process, the better. I mean, at some point, if we could get like 80 to 90% to opt out of voting, we're doing good, right? No, I don't have like this huge faith in democracy. I don't think that it's above board, and our democracy, our supposed constitutional republic, democracy, has led us to where we are today. So I'm not saying it's any better than any other form of government that we've ever had in the world. But I will say this, and this is the very most important thing to me as a candidate. If you are out there and you feel jaded about politics right now, okay, 51% of the population didn't vote for a presidential candidate in 2022 or 2020. Okay, I think it was less than that in 2016. Okay, or more than that. Well, either way you look at it, it's a bigger percentage of people that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. If you're one of those people, I know how you feel. I know that you would do anything you could to give the middle finger to the establishment. Trust me, I feel the same way. I am you. I am the same exact person. I am literally here raising 6 kids, middle-class America, trying to figure out how we can roll back this horrendous, tyrannical government that we have today. I've been doing it for years, and it's frustrating and hard, and you got to put so much blood, sweat, and tears to work towards these ends in a movement that doesn't gain a lot of traction. But I want to give a middle finger to the establishment. All right? And the best way to do that, the best vote you can make in this torn democracy that none of us believe in anymore, is to vote for the guy that's saying he hates the establishment. And I don't mean the Donald Trump who's telling you he hates the establishment while going to their DC piss orgies together.
Right.
I'm telling you, vote for the guy that hates the establishment and has hated the establishment for years and years and years, and has proven it through the work that he's done in politics. Nothing is a bigger middle finger to the establishment. I'm the only serious candidate running. I'm the only one, because of the things that I'm campaigning on. I mean that the dog park over the ATF ashes of the ATF building. I mean that. Getting rid of the income tax. I mean that. These are things that I want. They're not just things that I want to say to get elected. I don't think I'm going to get elected. I'm going to fight to get elected. But I'm telling you these things because I will do them. And I'll tell you, if we put up a 15% lob at the general election, nothing is going to scare these establishment types more. Nothing. Because I'm telling you, what this does is it puts us on equal footing around the country. but it also scares them into the point of where now they have to start governing the way that they campaign. We're the shark in the water. We're the young 40-year-old tattooed, tradesman that just got 15% in the general election in the United States by just saying he hates the establishment and wants to rip and shred it apart. They're scared. They know that's a movement. They know there's people coming for their jobs. And I want to be the guy that leads that movement. So give me a vote. Come to the national convention in DC in May of next year. Let me get that vote so I can get out there on the tour and scare these people, because I'm going to. They cannot scare me. I've already been through their ringer repeatedly. I'm uncompromisable. That I'm not going to capitulate on my platform, and I'm going to tell them the way it is. And you give us 15% in the polls, I'll get on the national debate stage and tell them these things to their face. And I mean that. And they won't stop me. No one will stop me, unless they kill me. And that's a whole another catalyst for a whole nother movement they don't want to see. We got a big enough platform, So come help us out, man. We would appreciate the support. And we're going to be a movement of people giving the middle finger to the establishment in 2024. And I'd love to see you be a part of that history.
Great. Well, I see you've got your website here on the display, joshuasmith2024.com. If you like what Josh has to say and you want to get involved, I mean, that's certainly a place to go. And as he said, it's important to get involved on a local level as well. This is, as someone involved in both my county chapters and state party, this is where a lot of the real work is done. And if you want to have a say as to who that libertarian nominee is going to be, get involved on the local level, get involved in your state, become a delegate, and come to Washington, D.C. in 2024 and have your voice heard.
We're going to start to make history in the belly of the beast May of next year. There's no doubt about it. But by the way, before we go, if you check out the website, there's several things you can do there. There's a volunteer form. You can sign up to volunteer on the campaign. That's very important. We love that. Of course, you can donate to us. Let me tell you, we are up against financial juggernauts, hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into these campaigns. And so every dollar you send us spends like 3 to them. I mean, we are literally, our money goes so much further than those campaigns. You can also sign up for the email list. That's where you can get all the updates about the campaign. You can watch all our videos, read all our platforms. There's a whole media section now. So episodes like this we'll be putting on the website, so you guys can check out any episode you want, Timcast, this one, all the good ones. And I look forward to you guys helping us out and getting us across that goal so we can go out there and give the middle finger to the establishment. Vote for vengeance.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out to come on the podcast. Hopefully we can talk again soon. I know, I'm working with the state of Illinois on our upcoming convention in 2024. So we are going to be inviting some of the presidential candidates to address the state convention. So
I'm sure I can make it to Illinois. I'm sure. I'm only a couple hours away driving. We're the Midwest guys. We could drive anywhere in 14 hours. You know what I mean? I'm going to drive.
I think next year, so it's not that far.
No, it's not. And I think it was 2020. I actually I came to Peoria. I did I ran the fundraiser. I gave the keynote speech. I helped a bunch in Illinois. I love Illinois, man. So I'd love to come back and hang out with you guys. In fact, it was the last convention I made before COVID shut down all the other conventions.
Right. Again, appreciate it, and good luck. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
And thank all of you for joining me. If you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button to stay updated on the latest episodes. If you're tuning in through Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app, click follow to stay in the loop. You can also follow me on Twitter at Second City Liberty. That's the number 2, ND, City Liberty. Check out my website, www.secondcityliberty.com. And if you have an idea for the show or a guest that you would like to see appear on the podcast, shoot me an email, jim@secondcityliberty.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay strapped, and stay based.